Welcome back. Sino nga ba sa Russia, Saudi Arabia, Uruguay at Egypt ang may tsansa na umabante sa round of 16? Kasama natin ngayon ang analysts na sina Bob Guerrero, Marielle Benitez, and Armand del Rosario, ang ating mga magigiting na analysts sa SND for football and the UAP as well. Good evening and welcome to our special The Score episode, ang Road to Russia.
Thank you very much.
All right, and since Russia is the host for this year's World Cup, let's talk about the home team. Now, Bob, I'll start with you. How important will the home field advantage be for the Russians?
Well, if you look at the history of the World Cup, quite a few teams have won it at home. Like England won it in 1966, Argentina 1978, West Germany in 1974, and France in 1998. So it's a huge advantage. I don't think Russia can win this World Cup. They've never been close in a long time, but they'll have a chance. I think round of 16 is doable, maybe even quarterfinals. Pero iba din talaga pressure pag home eh. It can also work the other way, I think.
Ayan, Marielle, sinabi nga ni Bob na iba rin yung pressure. Now, aside from the pressure of having to impress yung mga kababayans mo in Russia, ano pa yung mga ibang disadvantages of being the host country of the World Cup?
I mean, syempre, like what you said nga, yung pressure to perform well in front of your countrymen. But at the same time, I think the whole world will have their eyes on Russia, how well they'll do in this tournament. And I think basically as a country, the preparation to showcase their country to the other nations that will be coming over to Russia.
Armand, sinabi ni Bob kanina na he does not think Russia will win this year, but there should be an extra motivational boost individually for the players who are playing there for Russia, and knowing that should they have a good showing, mas tataas pa yung respeto ng ibang manlalaro para sa kanila. So Armand, for you, how do you think this will affect the players knowing that they're playing at home? Do you think that somehow that inspirational boost, they can string up a couple of victories and maybe make it to the round of 16?
Well, to be honest, this Russia team is not the greatest team, right? They have a league that they play in, which they have a few stars. It's not a strong team. It's in Europe, the league is not known as a strong league at all. Pero playing at home in front of your home crowd, it makes a big difference. It's you go to a stadium, you play at home, the crowd is like your 12th man on the field, diba? So, syempre para sa akin, as a former football player, I think playing at home will help. It'll be an advantage. Will it carry them to the round of 16? Possibly. Of all the groups, this is the most open of all the groups. So anybody can get in at any given time. Syempre, Uruguay is the highest ranked in the group and almost automatic, I'd say, to make it to the next round. The other three, very close.
All right. Since you mentioned Uruguay, I will follow up with you with another question about Uruguay. And of course, when you think about that country, Luis Suarez is the big name to watch. Personally, Armand, why do you think Luis Suarez is great as a football player, and what can he do to hopefully make Uruguay stand out in this competition?
Well, you look at how he's played in the last couple of years. He's matured ever since that incident, the biting incident. Yeah. Him playing alongside Messi, how they combine, how they play together, how they work. I'm not the biggest Barcelona fan, but you watch them play and beautiful, right? It's the one-touch move, possession type football that's great. And that experience with that team, he brings it back to Uruguay. He's going to lead Uruguay pretty far. I say they get pretty far in this tournament.
But then you also mentioned the biting incident. Tingin mo ba yun yung mas naaalala ng tao tungkol kay Luis Suarez, or do you think his greatness has somehow made people forget about that incident?
You look at Luis Suarez today, he's a top 5, 7 player in the world, right? He's a really quality player. So you look at him as a great football player. Syempre, people will remember the incident where he bit the person, pero this is the time where he can erase those memories if he can take the team and lead them to far down into the tournament. Diba?
All right. One more question for you, Armand, before we move on to the next country in the group. Uruguay is a very small nation, but why do you think they're able to produce these world-class players like Luis Suarez and become competitive here in the World Cup?
Well, soccer, football in these countries, it's inbred in their culture. the moment you're born, it's parang they give you a ball and you have that football in your hand. Diba dito sa Filipinas, it's basketball. You're born, basketball right away. Everyone's playing basketball in the streets. In South America, it's all football. All football. You go anywhere out there, Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, football. You know, you look at Uruguay now, they have a lot of great talent. Cavani's there with Suarez, one of the top tandems of striking tandems of any team in the whole of the World Cup. You know, so there'll be a handful for other teams, and hopefully the Philippines can follow in their footsteps in terms of children wanting to play football instead of basketball down the road.
All right, Armand was describing how big football is in South America and in Europe. But what about Asia? So let's move on to that side of the world and talk about Saudi Arabia. What separates Saudi Arabia from the best national teams in Europe and South America? And what do other countries like Saudi Arabia have to do to catch up and reach the level of those nations in Europe and South America?
Well, of course, for Asia, I mean, we're learning from the European countries where football is really number one. But I think having players play overseas, getting exposure in countries like Spain or even in teams in high-level teams in Europe will allow, like what Armand said, to bring back to Saudi Arabia the skills that they learned there to also elevate their national team. So I think exposure in competitive leagues.
All right. What do you think is the difference between the style of play in Saudi Arabia as compared to the style that we see in Europe and other areas of the world?
Okay, for Saudi Arabia, in their pro league, a lot of them play in the mid-third. So even with this team, with their team, they play a 1-4-2-3-1, which has a lot of, they like to keep possession in midfield. So that means it actually slows down the tempo of play as compared to maybe the European countries where it's a lot of quick movements. So with Saudi Arabia, you'd expect them to keep possession played and probably bank on counter-attacks to give that space in their attacking third.
Marielle, any particular player that you're excited to watch from the Saudi Arabia side?
I think I was just checking out their games, and I forget his name. I had it noted down because he was the guy who scored against Japan that actually delayed the qualifying of Australia into the World Cup, and his name is Fahad Al-Muwalad.
Yeah. So Marielle, always ready with her notes.
Just to make sure I wouldn't get his name wrong.
Okay, now that leaves us with the last country, which Bob will tackle, Egypt. So one of the players to watch out from Egypt is Mohamed Salah. So, Bob, what do you think, what kind of player do you think Salah is?
He's just an amazing goal scorer, really quick, technical, amazing on the ball, and there was a tweet that I saw of a Liverpool fan. He said, "I'm naming my first child Mohamed Salah, even if he's a girl. Whether he's a boy or a girl, I don't care." He's a once-in-a-generational kind of player, and but you know, Egypt can't rely on him. Their other players have to step up.
Okay.
So,
do you think, Bob, that he can be as good for Egypt as he is for Liverpool?
Well, it's going to be difficult because he plays with Liverpool every single week and trains with them every single day, and Jurgen Klopp has his team humming, and ganyan talaga pag international team, makikita-kita lang kayo 1 month bago mag-umpisa yung tournament, yung World Cup, and the players alongside of him are not going to be at the level of the players in Liverpool, I don't think. But I mean, Egypt, they have a great passion for football. But like the rest of Africa, they probably lack the infrastructure to really go very deep in this level. But there's a chance they could make it into the round of 16.
Yeah. And on paper, it seems that Egypt is actually a dark horse to qualify out of this group. Do you think Salah will be enough to help them reach the round of 16?
I think there have to be contributions from other players. A lot of times in the World Cup, it's like a shop window, and players and from lesser countries, magandang pinakita nila sa World Cup, so napapansin sila ng mga ibang teams, and that I think that has to happen because you know, he'll obviously be a marked man by these defenses.
Once again, as always, it's great to hear from our football minds, Armand del Rosario, Marielle Benitez, and of course, Bob Guerrero. Guys, thank you so much for coming here to The Score and our Road to Russia special.
Thank you.
For more sports updates, keep watching The Score.
And don't forget to subscribe.